Let's rock, baby.
Hey everybody, Kyle is really here today. I want to talk about my favorite moments from Chapter 9, right? So we're going in right into like Luffy and Nami talking, and Nami says to Luffy, she's like, "What's in this hat? Why are you so obsessed with this hat? You know, why'd you get so mad about these pirates attacking and touching your hat?" And then basically what happens here is that Luffy goes on about saying how this hat is his treasure and it means a lot to him. And Nami's like, "Well, that's weird. What's this hat about? What? There's got to be a treasure map in here or something." And they start walking and talking and stuff, and they go into this like little house. And Luffy says to Nami, he's like, You steal from people too?" And she's like, "No, I only steal from pirates. I'm gonna buy back my village once I make 100 million freaking berries." And I was like, damn, that's a lot of money, right? And it cuts to this top of this tavern, and Buggy's up there. And one of my favorite moments that made me laugh, like actually out loud, was that Buggy says to his crew, he's like, "You still haven't found that thief?" And then the crew member says to Buggy back, he's like, "Only the rubber knows." And then Buggy says, "What about my nose? You think it's fake?" Such dumb, dry humor. I loved it. It made me bust up laughing pretty hard.
Then why wasn't the chart properly guarded?
I don't know, sir. The map was just sitting out, plain as the nose on your face.
What did you say?
I mean, it was easy for her to find and take it.
Did you say something about my nose?
So right after that dumb, dry humor joke, Buggy like shoots his hands out because we find out he's got a devil fruit, and he full on Vader chokes this guy, his own crew member. He just chokes him to death, and I'm like, damn, that's brutal, dude. Like, holy crap. Buggy is such a funny character. I love reading this again after so many years. And if you guys like this content, please like and subscribe. Appreciate it. And going into Chapter 10. So we start Chapter 10, right? Zoro makes landfall, and he tells Buggy's crew to take him to see their captain. And it's funny because it cuts to Nami tricking Luffy to get close to Buggy as her captain. It's funny. What happens is Nami is like getting closer with the Buggy crew by immune to getting drunk. She's so motivated by treasure that she's just like immune to getting drunk. And we find that Buggy's cannonballs are like can wipe out a small town. So like that's quite a destructive feat if you ask me. So Luffy's like stuck in the cage now, and he's like 9 at the frickin' bars in this cage, and Buggy says that you prove your loyalty by killing your captain. And so they get ready to light this cannon, right? And this guy's like, "Nami, you look like you need some help lighting this cannonball." And he goes and lights the cannon. And Nami's like, "No, I will never be a murderer." So she knocks this dude out, and Luffy's like, "Looks like you aren't prepared." And then Nami says, "Prepared? What do you mean prepared? I just don't want to be a murderer like all of you. You pirates took something special from me." And then Luffy's like, "Oh, well, that explains why now I get why you don't like pirates. Now it all makes sense." Zoro shows up at the last minute. The fuse is still lit. It's about to blow. Zoro comes up last second, saves the day. And we find out that Buggy is very interested in fighting Zoro to boost his status. But Zoro just says, "I gave up pirate hunting a long time ago." And Buggy's like, "Well, I'm very interested in you." So then they get ready to do this duel, and Zoro's all like, "You fight me, you'll die." And then they clash, and then Zoro presumably just one-shots Buggy like no problem, and that's basically how Chapter 10 ends.
Interested though. Killing you would bolster my reputation.
If you try, you'll die.
So going into Chapter 13 now, we find that Buggy is immune to cutting attacks. And Zoro presumably thinks he's won, and Buggy hits him with a sneak attack and hits him right in between his kidney, and Zoro suffers a serious fatal wound, presumably, and Buggy is, on his high ball and trash talking or whatever. And Luffy tells Zoro, hey, we're losing this, we run, and then they kind of like, they realize that they should use the Buggy cannon that fires the Buggy bolts in reverse. So Zoro quickly runs and he flips the frickin' cannon backwards and fires the cannon. And Nami lights it and they fire the cannon at Buggy and they end up escaping. And we quickly find out just how strong and willpower Zoro actually is. So despite his injuries, he lifts this cage up with Luffy inside, and we get to see a little glimpse of how ridiculously strong some of these characters really are. And it's funny because, reading this again and I'm looking back and I'm like, Zoro feels like he's freaking hella handicapped. I noticed, because everyone knows who he is and he's got this high reputation amongst the East Blue, and we realize, quite right away that he's a very powerful character, and that I feel like Oda's like nerfing him constantly, because Zoro goes up against Buggy, who's immune to cutting attacks. It seems kind of like Zoro is like on par with Luffy, if not maybe even stronger than he is, and it's like feels like it's making it pretty obvious. But that's basically chapter 11. So we're going right into chapter 12, right? And it's pretty funny. Like, Zoro passes out from blood loss, and Nami says, to Zoro and Luffy, is your best hiding place really in the middle of the street? And Zoro's just like, too much blood loss, need rest, passes out, right? And Nami's like, well, I didn't get a chance to get the treasure, but here's the stupid key. So she throws the key, and it lands like right next to Luffy, and this like pooch shows up and just scarfs this key and eats it. And then Luffy starts strangling this dog. It's these little things that are just so dumb, it makes me laugh. This mayor of the town shows up and he's like, stop messing around with this dog. And we find out that this dog's got like this little backstory, and the dog is protecting this, store while his master's gone. But his master's already dead, and the mayor says, well, I think the dog already knows that his master's dead because he left to the hospital like 3 months ago. And we basically just learn a little backstory about this dog, and then Moji, Pirate Captain Buggy's first mate, shows up, and he's like, where's Zoro, right? And then Zoro and Luffy doesn't want to rat out Zoro, and so Luffy doesn't tell him. So then Moji's freaking giant lion tamer shows up and then just cleaves through the cage that Luffy's stuck in, and then Luffy just flies through like 3 houses. And then Luffy's like, alright, it's time to mess shit up, right? And then that's basically how chapter 12 ends. So we get slammed right into chapter 13, right? And Nami is so sarcastic. She's like, it's not normal for someone to get thrown through 3 buildings and walk away without a scratch. And I just love, like, her sarcasm is just so perfectly timed. I love it. It's so good, man. And Moji is just on a rampage, right? And he's like destroying everything, and he wipes out, this little dog house, for pet shop or whatever. And before he destroys it, he goes in and grabs a little snack, and we see this little pooch that ate the key try to fend off this lion, and then poor Chew gets freaking rolled and smoked, and and Luffy walks up and takes revenge on Moji, and takes revenge on him or whatever, and just beats the living crap out of this lion. And we get to see like a little glimpse of like Luffy's devil fruit, where he like shoots his arms out and does like a spinning pile driver on him. And I'm just like, dude, like the possibilities of Luffy's moves just feels endless.
I'm not gonna be beaten by a lion.
right? And I think Oda was such a genius with making Luffy start with a rubber devil fruit, because it's just like, what else can he like do, right? So he freaking mops the floor and takes revenge for watching that poor pup. And I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like, Luffy can understand dog. I think there's a foreshadowing here, right? This early on in the story, there's definitely some serious foreshadowing going on. So we fly like right into chapter 15, right? And we get introduced to Kabaji, the acrobat, and he like pulls like a sword out of his mouth, and then he like flips his way onto the street, like full on like circus freaks at this point, right? And the mayor is like running in, you know, just head first into his death because he just wants to fight for his town so bad. And Buggy like freaking grabs him by the throat and just Vaders his ass, like, you know, chokeholds this mayor. And the mayor's just like punching this freaking hand like thing. I don't know, it's One Piece, bro. It doesn't have to make sense. But we see that Buggy's devil fruit has quite some serious range on it. He seems like he might be like secretly really OP, but like he's too weak to utilize his devil fruit is what I'm starting to get the understanding in retrospect, you know, reading this again. So we cut to a point where Luffy shows up and he saves the mayor and pulls Buggy's like hand off the mayor's neck, pulls it off, and then Buggy just loses his temper because Luffy says big nose, and then Buggy just like, that's it, give him the Buggy ball. So then Buggy flips the cannon over and fires the Buggy ball at Luffy, and instead of explaining what Luffy's going to do, he just does a big huff and inflates himself and makes him into a big balloon, deflects the Buggy ball back at Buggy, and it misses and it blows up a part of the town. And it's just like, oh my god. But you know what's funny? Whenever he does this gum balloon, it reminds me of Lanky Kong in DK64, where he inflates himself just like a baboon. And then that's basically when the chapter ends. So chapter 16 starts off like instantly with Nami telling Luffy that it's very strange that you can push off a cannonball by inflating yourself. And then she instantly says, well, I did just watch you pile drive a lion. And I'm just I'm just like, dude, I can't. The sarcasm was just too goated. Nami is such a great character, like, instantly. I just love her smart-ass attitude all the time. It's just so sassy. It's so good, right? And then Kabaji jumps Luffy, and then Zoro cuts in and says, well, if it's a sword you use, then how about you fight me? And then they start duking it out or whatever, and Kabaji's, like, abusing the fact that Zoro has, like, this wound. And so he's, like, constantly aiming for his weak spot, and Zoro eventually just, like, snaps and says, that's it, this enough of a handicap for you. So he literally just cuts himself. Okay. And then he puts the bandana on, and it's like, time's up, let's do this, Leroy.
Let's do this, Leroy
Jenkins. And that's when the chapter just cuts right there. So the last chapter of the volume 17, volume 2, starts off with Nami telling Luffy that while they duke this out, she's gonna go rob Buggy and get the treasure map. So Zoro's fighting Kabaji right now, and he's doing all these like circus tricks while they're fighting. And Zoro's like, I'm getting really bored of these games and tricks. It's time for me to like actually take you out now. And then Kabaji's like, with those wounds? Yeah, right. And you know, they're trash talking to each other. And then Zoro just proceeds to just freaking just one-shot him with his onigiri. Like, dude, Kabaji is so dog. I swear, Zoro is so nerfed early in the story. Like, so reading this again after a long time, it just cracks me up. Just how nerfed he is. Like, I feel like he's like actually the strongest character in the East Blue. Like, he just is. I feel like if he's at full strength, has 3 swords, he's easily up there, like top 2 characters in the East Blue. But right after that, right after Zoro just freaking cleaves him in half, it cuts to Luffy fighting, you know, Buggy or whatever, and then Buggy's like, I've seen that straw hat somewhere. Where'd you get that? And then Luffy's like, Shanks, and then it just ends right there, and that was volume 2 on how it ends. And it's like, there's definitely, you know, some beef here, and I remember this pretty well in the anime. But reading the manga again, I'm surprised how fast everything's running. So I'm pretty excited for the anime remake. But with all that said, everybody, thank you all so much for tuning in. If you've made it this far, thank you all so much. I appreciate it. I'm having a lot of fun reading this again, and I want to share my feelings with each chapter, even a little bit. And if you guys want more and you enjoy this, please subscribe. I appreciate it. I want to actually try and grow this channel. See if we can actually reach 500 by the end of the year. That would be amazing if we could reach 500 subs. It would pass my gaming channel that I've been working on for like 10 years. So much love, everyone. Thank you all so much for even giving this a minute or two watch. Thank you. But yeah, I appreciate everybody. Take care, everybody, and I'll see you later this week for volume 3. Let's see if I can push that out by Friday. Thank you all so much. Take care, everybody. Have a good one. Laters.